Uh, for the week one lecture, I want to talk about organization. It seems to me that when you ask the question of leaders, what problems seem to be to solve, they seem to respond with a similar list of problems, and they include things improving communications and improving performance and quality. Certainly today, lowering costs. What Yahoo recently mentioned the need to foster innovation, um, implementing change. It's not a coincidence that organizations tend to identify a similar list of problems that are difficult to solve, and the commonality here is that each of these problems involves a complex social system, and that's why they're difficult. Each problem centers on coordinating the efforts and commitments of systems of employees in order to achieve a common organizational goal. Now, if you go into a community, and it could be any community in the U.S. today, and you ask the similar question, what problems seem to be difficult to solve here? Once again, we get a pretty similar list. Of course, today budget's probably top of the list. Problem with illegal drugs, education, crime, government not being responsive, taxes, lack of meaningful employment, lack of leadership, and it illustrates the same problem here. That what we have is we have institutions all over the United States are dealing with the same type of problems, and the reason why is because they're complex social system problems. And what we've been doing, we've learned a way of thinking that is called analysis, and Russell Ackoff defined analysis best, and when he said that what we actually do, what analysis does, is that we break things down into parts, and then we look for a root cause, and then we actually try to find what's been the best solution in the past that we've done and apply that. And this works great with mechanical problems. You notice that there weren't any mechanical problems on either one of those lists I was talking about earlier. And that's because even it doesn't matter how complex a mechanical problem is, we're good at solving it. It's the complex social systems problems that we don't do good at, and one of the reasons why is because we try to apply analysis to that and it just doesn't work. For example, what's the single root cause of drugs and illegal drugs in a community? Well, you can't pin it down to one thing, and especially if you have a room full of people, because you're going to have a whole bunch of problems come on. Even if you think about it, television shows, they tend to have experts on, and the expert applies analysis from the point of view of their function, and they come up with a root cause that applies to their function. But if you had someone from another function on there, they're going to have a different root cause. So the problem is, as Ackoff basically identified a long time ago, the problem is we need a different type of thinking to deal with these problems, and of course that thinking is systems thinking, and that's this course focuses on systems thinking. Now, also, I want to talk a little bit about the influence of evolution and systems thinking on organizations. And so, if you think about it, natural selection and the environment is what Darwin published his work on, and he basically talked about species adapting to a changing environment. And we even have an example of that today, that there's people living in the high regions in Tibet, have lived there for generations, where the climate literally is different. The air pressure is different. And they've evolved a stronger upper respiratory system to deal with that, where their blood vessels and capillaries, they have more of them, and they're bigger to deal with the thinner air. So we have a documented case with people. There's lots of documented cases with animals. And if you think about this, it was a few years ago. I was on a family vacation. We went to Myrtle Beach, and I don't know, my wife was shopping or something, and then there was a reptile, I don't know, farm, whatever you want to call them there, to look at. So I went to that while she was shopping, and one of the things I saw, and it was pretty good size too, is there was an albino alligator there. I mean, this thing was really had no pigment at all. So it looked pretty much like a white alligator, and it looked odd, and it was big. It was 6, 7 foot long, and if you think about it, and the people, the trainers there, they said, well, this animal only is alive because it was in their farm. They said had it been born in the wild, it would never have lived, because for one thing, as a predator, it stands out against the grass and the dirt of the bank, and it stands out even in the water. So prey could easily spot an albino alligator, so it would have a very difficult time catching prey. And then not only that, and as it was small and growing to size, it would have a difficult time hiding from larger predators that might prey on small alligators. So it really would not survive. And Herbert Spencer talked about survival of the fittest, and this concept. The reason why I'm talking about this concept has been applied to organizations, and we went through this years ago, in the '60s, where vertical integration was being large and vertically integrated was an advantage, and then as time passed, suddenly that stopped being an advantage, and the largest organizations with the most vertical integration were disadvantaged because the decision making was slow. So they had to start taking layers out of the organizations. And today, we're going through a trend again because of the global economy, and a lot of organizations have downsized and outsourced everything except their core business, which seems to be adaptive based upon a networking structure. But then again, there's also other organizations that are doing that just because they see other organizations doing it, or they're not sure why they're doing it. They're only doing it because others are doing it. And they've used job enlargement as a way to do that, and that's something that's eventually is going to catch up to them, where it's probably not going to be an effective tactic. So we see that organizations change, and there's also, as the environment changes, there's also a systems trend with this, because in global organizations that there's economic global interdependence, and we've seen this in multiple times in the last few years. Most recently, the financial system in Greece failed, and when that happened, that affected manufacturing here in the United States immediately because of international pricing. And so once again, what we're seeing is analysis is not effective in dealing with global organizations. Same way, even if you look at Yahoo's recent problem with virtual employees, and their CEO Marissa Mayer pulling them all back in, and her stated reason was to foster innovation. But it makes me think that um, the characteristics of virtual employees and teams are different than traditional employees and teams. They need to be managed differently, and because you should be able to foster innovation and high productivity with virtual employees. So as Akoff said, really it's time for a new tool. It's time to do systems thinking, and during our course here, we're going to have a chance to do quite a bit of that. I liked Akoff used to have a simple inquiry, and he would go into an organization knowing it was a complex social system, and his first question would be, well, just exactly what is the mess? And he thought the English language lacked a good word for a system full of problems, so he used the word mess to equate to a system full of problems. And then he would ask the question, well, how did this develop? So he would kind of get the history of it. And then his third question were what seemed to be the underlying causes. Notice causes is plural. And how are they interrelated? Because he assumed there was going to be multiple causes in a complex social system. And then his last question was what would happen if no significant changes were made to the system? In other words, if you did nothing at all, what would happen? And sometimes the answer would be, well, it'd be catastrophic. Other times, maybe not so. So anyway, it was a pretty good inquiry about systems of problems. Here's some references. I know these two internet references. I just recently checked them. They're gone now because I pulled these references quite a while back, but I don't think I have anything in here that's out of the ordinary, and certainly Akoff's the primary source, and his book Creating the Corporate Future is a good one. It has a lot of his systems theory in it. I'm going to post a transcript along with this lecture. Thanks.